Coraline did not need revenge. She needed to remember who she was. For years, she hid her education, her family name, her language, and her brilliance just to make her husband feel bigger. But the smaller she made herself, the crueler he became. One dinner changed everything. In a black silk dress, speaking perfect French, she stopped apologizing for her power. And by the end of the night, the man who called her ordinary was begging the woman he never truly knew.
3 years of marriage hit a wall in 4 words, just a small town girl. Julian tossed the words like they were nothing, standing in the doorway of our city condo. I gripped the wooden spoon tight. The roast I spent hours preparing for our anniversary suddenly felt like trash. I kept my cool. Don't fight him. You heard me, Elena. He paced the dining room, sneering at the fancy china. He called it quaint, a backhanded way to say, I didn't belong. Special? He sprawled into his chair, eyes glued to his phone. He hated my efforts. He bragged about dinner with his boss and a woman named Veronica who acted like she owned the place. I tried to defend our humble meal, but he snapped. He wanted a trophy wife who could speak French and act rich. The jab stung. I just took a slow, steady breath. In for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. He told me my French was fake and embarrassing. He hated that I was smarter than his director during that charity gala. He even forced me to stay quiet for days after I helped him fix a deal. Dinner was a silent, bitter affair. I watched my husband, this man who used to look at me with actual wonder, and realized he was gone. He used to love my mind. Now, he called it unambitious. When he told me about missing a promotion to a less qualified guy, I tried to sympathize. He exploded. He ranted about office politics and how I didn't get how the real world worked. He mocked my advice on a bad business deal, mimicking my voice like a cruel child. He was desperate to blame anyone but himself. My past advice on that failed deal was now his favorite weapon. He loved to pretend my caution ruined his career. I was just trying to help, but he twisted it into an insult. He wanted a wife who made him look good, not one who actually knew what she was talking about. His phone buzzed, and he turned deathly pale. He looked like he had seen a ghost. The big account he wanted, lost to his rival. The hatred in his eyes was pure poison. He tore into me, calling me dead weight and mocking my very existence. He enjoyed the cruelty. I stood my ground, finally finding my voice. This wasn't about the dinner. This was his own pathetic failure talking. He sneered, calling me a burden because I came from money. That was the last straw. I told him to leave, and when he hesitated, I threatened to call the police. The shock on his face was satisfying. For a second, he didn't know how to handle a woman who wasn't begging for his approval. He backed down, but he had one last nasty trick up his sleeve. He wanted to drag me to a high-end French restaurant tomorrow to humiliate me in front of the elite. He was so excited to put me in my place. He thought he could finally break me with public shame. I didn't flinch. I kept my tone ice cold. I asked him, what if I just refused to play his game? He practically sprinted out the door, eager to set his little trap. I didn't cry. I cleaned up the mess and felt a strange sense of clarity. He wanted a lesson? Fine. I pulled out my secret phone and called my brother, Alexander. I needed a professional. A real smile finally broke through. It was time to show Julian who he was really messing with. Julian, I whispered, voice steady, it is time. Dinner at the Gilded Lily is tomorrow. He thinks he is taking a local girl to her first big night out. A rich laugh filled the phone line. Marcus runs the kitchen now. He will love seeing you. Should I come? I watched the mirror fog. Yes, I said, eyes cold. Make an entrance. Let us teach my husband a lesson. Tomorrow he would see exactly where I belonged. It would ruin him. I stayed awake all night, planning. The pain had hardened into something sharp. For a year I had been shrinking to fit his tiny world. Now I was reclaiming the woman I used to be. My phone buzzed at 7. Sebastian. I ignored it. A text appeared. Be ready at 6:30. Wear the blue dress from the sale, not the floral one. I did not reply. That blue dress a drab, shapeless thing he called respectable. It hung in my closet like a white flag. I walked past it, reaching deep into my wardrobe for a garment bag I had ignored for years. The scent of lavender hit me as I unzipped it. Inside was a simple column of black silk, A gift from Julian for my 25th birthday. Sebastian hated it, so I had buried it. I spent the day in calm detachment, printing a copy of my passport under my maiden name, Clara Elise Sinclair, to tuck into my purse. Another buzz from Julian, all set. Table for 3 at 8:15. Marcus says you have not aged a day. I will arrive at 8:30. Save me some snacks. Then, ready, my lioness? I typed back, born ready. See you at the circus. The black silk felt like armor. I kept my hair simple, added deep wine lipstick, and finally felt like myself. At 6:28, the lock clicked. Sebastian walked in, scanning for flaws. His smug look snapped into shock. "What are you wearing?" he barked. "A dress," I said, grabbing my clutch. "That is not the one I picked!" I met his gaze. "No, it is not." He scowled at the silk, clearly rattled that it did not belong in his world. He looked rattled. "Fine," he muttered. "Just act like you belong. The cab is waiting. Don't talk on the way. I need to prep you." The ride was suffocating. Sebastian held a mental note card like a lecture, drilling me on gourmet menu terms and bread etiquette. "Tear, then butter," he snapped. I repeated it flatly. "And don't mention wine. I handle that. Just swirl, sniff, and nod. Don't ask for ketchup or steak sauce." I kept my face blank, listening to his frantic instructions while he tried to keep his panic under control. He was so terrified of looking foolish that he was becoming a caricature of the man he desperately wanted to be. I watched the city lights, thinking of my grandparents' kitchen in France and my life before Sebastian. A sharp sadness hit me, not for what was ending, but for the life I had wasted trying to impress him. He never wanted a partner. He wanted a prop, and when I showed a spark of my own, he tried to crush it. "The most important rule," Sebastian said, breaking my silence. "Do not speak French. That baby talk is embarrassing. Just speak English. Understood? Baby talk." He meant the phone calls where I laughed with my grandmother. He had reduced my joy to something childish. "Understood," I said. He leaned back, satisfied that he had me caged. "Just smile and keep quiet." We pulled up to the venue, nothing but a small brass plaque. The door opened, and a doorman ushered us inside. Sebastian puffed his chest, gripping my back in a proprietary move I fought to ignore. The room smelled of starch and old money. The host, Gerald, glided over. "Name? Sebastian Moore," he announced too loudly. 8:00 for 2. Gerald checked his list, his smile tight. "Ah, yes, Mr. Moore, this way." He skipped the main room and marched us to a cramped corner by the kitchen, the table for people they wanted to insult. Sebastian, oblivious, looked proud. He thought he was the big shot, but the staff saw right through him. Sebastian pulled out my chair with a flourish, beaming. Gerald dropped menus and bowed away. Sebastian scanned the French text, panic flickering in his eyes. He recognized basic words but was completely lost. Confit. En croûte he was drowning. I opened mine. It was like reading a story. I wanted the foie gras. "Just get the chicken," Sebastian muttered. "It is hard to mess up." Suddenly a server arrived with effortless grace. Marcus. I remembered him as a kid chasing his father through our family vineyards. Now he was a polished professional. Our eyes met, and a flicker of recognition passed between us before he masked it perfectly. "Good evening," he said, his accent a soft melody. "May I start you with a drink? We will have the house red," Sebastian snapped. Marcus smiled, though I saw the disappointment. "If I may," he offered the better list. "The house red is fine." Sebastian cut him off, slamming his menu shut. "We are not trying to impress anyone, right, honey?" He patted my hand like a brand. I gave Marcus a tiny shake of my head. "Very well, monsieur," Marcus said, turning to leave. He paused, looking right at me. "Madame, that is a stunning dress. Vintage couture, late 80s. A smile touched my lips. "Merci, Marcus. You have a very trained eye. It is a gift from my brother." "You have a sharp eye, Marcus. It was a gift from my brother." His face lit up with a real, unguarded smile. "He has impeccable taste, as always." He nodded respectfully and walked away. The silence at our table was deafening. Sebastian leaned in, face turning a deep, angry red. "What was that?" he hissed. I sipped my water. "What was what? That babbling! I told you not to speak French. I was just being polite," I said calmly. "Don't you dare correct me," he snarled. "You think you are clever, but you are still just a girl from a farm who got lucky." I looked at him, finally seeing the bitter, insecure stranger he really was. "You are right, Sebastian," I said softly. He leaned back, thinking he had won. I continued, "I am a girl from a farm that has been in my family for 200 years and produces some of the most sought-after grapes in Burgundy. The house red you ordered? That is bulk swill for people who do not know better." He sat frozen, mouth hanging open. "Your parents run a fruit stand in Napa," he stammered. I almost laughed. That was the cover story for privacy. "They do a bit more than that," I said. Bread arrived then, crusty baguette and rich brioche. Sebastian grabbed a piece, buttering it sloppily in his rage. Crumbs fell everywhere. I watched him, then slowly buttered my brioche. It tasted like freedom. The other tables were watching, a few stray glances. Sebastian was still fuming. "You are lying," he finally spat out, wiping his mouth. "You made this up to mess with me. It is pathetic." "It is Clara," I said, voice cold. "Believe what you want. You always do." A waiter arrived with a bottle, not what Sebastian ordered. Marcus brought a vintage red. He set it before me, not Sebastian. "With the compliments of the house. 2015 from your family estate. We saved a few for a special occasion." Sebastian stared at the bottle, then at Marcus. "What is this?" I ordered the house wine. Marcus turned to him, his smile gone. "My apologies, sir." The sommelier decided this pairing suited the lady better. He uncorked it and poured. I swirled the wine, notes of dark cherry, perfect. "It is magnificent. Marcus, thank the sommelier." "Certainly, madame," he said, then turned to Sebastian. "For you, sir." He gestured to the cheap house wine. Sebastian stiffened as Marcus poured. The contrast was a joke, my deep ruby against his watery blend. Sebastian gulped his down. "It is fine," he grunted, eyes locked on my glass. He saw the reverence in my grip and realized the gap between us. The first course came. Sebastian got a basic salad. I was served the foie gras, complete with fig compote. "I did not order that," Sebastian barked. "Compliments of the house for madame," Marcus said smoothly. "A small token of our esteem." Sebastian was drowning. His script, the one where he was the cultured mentor, was in shreds. I was getting the respect he craved. He ate in hateful silence. I savoured the foie gras, exquisite. Every bite reminded me of the life I once knew. I loved it, but I loved watching his confusion more. The restaurant vibe shifted, a new tension. The kitchen doors swung open. Gerald, the manager, looked frazzled. Sebastian leaned in, trying to regain control. "Look, stop this game. You are embarrassing us. Eat your chicken and drop the French act. This is my world. You are just a guest." I looked past him. A man had walked in. Tall, confident, commanding. He wore a suit worth more than Sebastian Escar, like it was his own skin. He laughed with Gerald, then scanned the room, his eyes locked onto mine. A brilliant smile lit up his face as he walked toward us. Heads turned to watch him. Sebastian noticed me shift. He turned, following my gaze. His face went pale. His fork clattered against the plate. "No," he whispered. Panicked. "That is impossible. Julian Sinclair?" The CEO of Sinclair Holdings, the billionaire Sebastian had obsessed over, for years reached our table. He ignored the man gaping at him. He placed a hand on my shoulder and kissed my cheek. "Hello, little sister," Julian said, his voice warm. "Sorry I am late." The jet had trouble over the Atlantic. He sat down, glaring at my husband. His smile stayed, but his eyes turned cold. "You must be Sebastian," Julian said, reaching out a hand. "I have heard so much about you." Our table felt like the center of the world. The chatter faded. Julian's hand hovered, a trap disguised as a greeting. Sebastian stared at it like a snake. His jaw locked. Panic hit as he darted between Julian and me. The realization sank in, the sterling legacy, the massive firm, the merger he had chased for months. My brother, Julian Sterling. Ethan stammered, wiping sweaty palms as he shook Julian's hand. "Sir, an honor." "Clara, you never mentioned this. He was a complete mess." Julian pulled away, smile fixed, eyes cold. "Just call me Julian, and I hear you prefer Clara." He said it like a slur. "I have always called her Clarissa, a family name. It suits her, right?" Ethan nodded, looking punched. A waiter arrived with a drink for Julian, who ignored Ethan completely. "So," Julian said, taking a sip, 2015. "Excellent choice, one of our finest." You can taste the limestone, the struggle in the vines. It gives it character. He spoke as if Ethan were a ghost. My father worried about the drought, but the grapes fought for it. Better that way, don't you think? Much better, I agreed. My voice steady, I caught my brother's eye. A signal. The game was on. Ethan watched the intimacy he could never grasp. He found his voice, high and tight. Sir Julian, I am so sorry. I am shocked. Clarissa never mentioned her maiden name. Sterling, of course. The Sterling Vineyards. I just never connected it. He forced a laugh, but it was just a dry cough. She is so modest, right? Julian agreed. Tone smooth, a Sterling through and through. We were raised to believe bragging is a sign of emptiness. It seems she learned well. He let that sting. Tell me, Ethan, how is the wine? Better than your house red, I assume. Ethan gulped his, wincing. It is very good. Bold. It is garbage, Julian said cheerfully. How would you know? He leaned in. So, you are at Kensington Partners? In acquisitions. How is that going? This was the moment Ethan had prayed for, a link to the billionaire whose firm was a titan in finance. His corporate mask slipped back into place. A tremendous firm. We are growing. Actually, sir, we have been eager to approach Sterling Holdings about your portfolio. The synergy is immense. I have a proposal. Julian cut him off. Voice flat. The one you sent my assistant? 6 times? And then, strangely, to private email. And even my father's office? Ethan turned ghost white. I was just being thorough. The right desk was the one you came home to, Julian said. Voice dangerous. My sister, who you told a competitor had the business sense of a houseplant, it is fine. She is decorative. The air vanished. I had not known about that email. I saw the memory of writing it flicker in Ethan's eyes, followed by pure raw panic. He was finished. That is out of context, he stammered. A private joke. A joke you hoped would land you a position at Sterling Financial, Julian noted, cold as ice. He offered them insights gained from pillow talk with a wife you called simple. He sipped his wine. My security team is top tier, Ethan. They flag everything. Ethan shook, his collar suddenly too tight. He looked at me, pleading. Clarissa, honey, you have to believe me. I do believe you, Ethan, I said. My voice eerily calm. I believe that is exactly what you think of me. I have heard the houseplant line before. Usually I am just a country girl. I tilted my head. Funny, because the country I am from produces wine that world leaders drink. The simple life you mocked paid for my Ivy League degree. The chatty wife you tried to silence speaks 4 languages fluently. Each word was a surgical strike. I watched the truth sink in. You went to the Ivy League, he whispered. Art, history and finance, Julian added, clearly enjoying himself. Graduated with honours, but she kept it off her resume for your benefit. Right, Clarissa? You wanted a normal life. He said it with pity, which felt worse than hate. The main courses arrived. A waiter set steak before Ethan, who ignored it. He set the chicken in front of me. My appetite vanished, replaced by cold focus. Why? Ethan croaked, his eyes hollow. Why hide all of this? Was it a game? Testing me? I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. His mind could only see a trick, because the idea that someone would downplay power for love was impossible to him. It was not a game, Ethan, I said, pushing my plate away. It was a choice. I loved the man who loved me, not my status or my bank account. I thought you were him. I was wrong. I stopped being me the moment I became an accessory to your ego. He shook his head, refusing it. You lied for years. I omitted. I corrected. You dismissed. There is a difference. You mocked my heritage. You called my family simple farmers. You wanted a trophy wife to make you feel like a giant. When I proved to be an educated woman, you tried to break me. You didn't want a partner. You wanted a mirror and you hated the truth that finally stared back. The restaurant went dead silent. Waiters froze. Even the manager watched, his face unreadable but his eyes wide with intensity. Ethan's shame shifted into desperate, feral rage. He pointed wildly at Julian and me. This public scene is your revenge? You dragged me here, humiliated me, and brought in your rich brother to finish it. You spoiled brat. You ruined my life just because I didn't worship you. Julian moved before I could blink. He didn't rise, but his hand shot out, clamping onto Ethan's wrist. The iron grip silenced him. Julian's voice dropped, cold and lethal. Lower your voice. You are a guest in a place of respect. You are speaking to my sister. The only reason you aren't choking on your own teeth is because she asked for civility. My patience is gone. Ethan went limp, his knife clattering to the plate. Julian released him, wiping his hands on a napkin as if he had touched something filthy. "Revenge?" I asked, my voice ice. "This is a consequence. This is you finally getting exactly what you asked for." I spoke in rapid French, clear and sharp. "Pierre, the food looks lovely, but my appetite is gone. Please pack it to go and bring me the check and a pen." "Certainly, Madame Sterling," he bowed. I continued in English for maximum impact. "And Pierre, send a bottle of the 2005 vintage to table 6. They are celebrating an anniversary, and it is my treat. A gift from my family estate." Table 6 was a couple in their 60s, beaming. The wife gasped, clutching her heart as her husband toasted me in thanks. That single bottle cost more than Ethan S. yearly bonus. It was a breathtaking show of status. Ethan looked like he had been physically struck. He knew the wine's legendary status. He had only read about it in dreams, and I had just given it away like water. "You," he breathed. "You can't. It is my estate," I said softly. "Well?" "Mine and Julian S. I can." The check arrived. I didn't glance at the total. I reached into my bag, pulling out a printed paper. I signed it with a flourish. "Clarissa Elise Sterling." I slid it to Ethan. It wasn't a check. It was a scan of my passport. "Burgundy, France. The farm girl from Napa? She never existed. You fell in love with a ghost, and you have been resenting a phantom for years." Julian placed a hand on my shoulder. "Ready, my dear?" I nodded. I looked at my husband of 3 years, sitting among the wreckage of his ego and our marriage. I felt no triumph, only a hollow relief. "The divorce papers will reach your office tomorrow," I said. "Do not return to the apartment. Your things are in storage. The access code is your mother's birthday, a final courtesy." I turned and walked away. "Please, you can't. I love you." I paused. Julian gripped my shoulder. I didn't turn back. "No, Ethan. You love the idea of a woman you could look down on. That woman is gone." I walked out into the cool Chicago air, taking a deep, free breath. The restaurant remained stunned behind us. I didn't need to look back. I could feel his desperate gaze and the weight of everyone's attention pressing against my spine. My heart drummed a steady, powerful beat. This was the autopsy of my marriage, and I was the one holding the blade. We were near the exit when the spell broke. "Wait, please!" Ethan's voice was a raw, panicked shout. Chairs scraped. I heard the manager murmur, "Sir, please." But Ethan stumbled after us, napkin still in hand. Julian stopped, a protective anchor on my arm, and turned with the grace of a king. I turned with him, expressionless. All eyes were on us. Ethan skidded to a halt, chest heaving. "Clarissa!" he gasped, ignoring Julian. "You can't just leave. This is insane. It is a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding," I repeated, my voice steady in the quiet room. "Which part, Ethan? The year of belittling me? Or the part where you tried to sell my family's private data for a promotion?" The room gasped. Ethan flinched. "I didn't that email, Julian. You have to understand the context," he babbled, turning to my brother. "It was just industry talk, bragging." "I never actually you offered Sterling Financial a unique inside track to Sterling Holdings." Julian cut in, his voice like a razor. "You wrote," and I quote, "My wife is a Sterling. She is too simple to understand business, but she chatters. I can get you insights. You listed 3 of our confidential negotiations in Asia, details only discussed in our private boardroom." "How did my simple sister get those, Ethan?" Ethan turned white. He looked at me, and the realization hit him. The nights he came home ranting about work, I had listened. I had made tea. I had asked probing questions the same way I would assess a vintage wine. Who is the competition? What is the hurdle? He had dismissed my insights as naive, then stolen them to impress his bosses. He thought I was too dim to catch him stealing my work. "You set me up," he hissed. "I protected my family," I replied, stone cold. "I recorded every word. One-party consent, Ethan. Perfectly legal." "I have hours of you leaking company secrets. I sent it to Julian months ago." "Months?" he croaked. Julian offered a sharp predator grin. "We watched you for months, Ethan waiting. My sister gave you loyalty you never earned, and you treated her like dirt." Ethan swayed. This was professional death, and knowing I had been baiting him, the ultimate humiliation. "You have no proof," Ethan stammered. "Just a scorned wife," Julian sighed and played a clip. Ethan's voice filled the room. Useless. That strategy I presented? They loved it. Thompson looked poisoned. I was the smartest guy in the room. And you know why? It was your dumb questions that started it. Like a monkey on a typewriter, you stumble onto something. My voice played back. I am glad it helped, but are you sure about that structure? His voice dripped with contempt. Oh, save it. You read one article and think you are a guru? Stick to making coffee. Julian stopped it. The silence was absolute. Everyone in the restaurant stared at Ethan. There are dozens more, Julian said. Some are sad. Others, like your leaked land deals, are legally actionable. Ethan's bravado shattered. What do you want? He begged, voice cracking. Money? I have nothing. Please, Coraline, remember Maine? The lighthouse? You were happy. He was scavenging for grace. That memory was a sharp jab, but the pain didn't own me anymore. I was happy, I said, my voice heavy. I loved the man I thought you were. You killed him, Ethan. You drowned him in spite. The man standing here? I don't know him, and I don't want to. I pulled a second legal envelope from my clutch. He stared at it like a live grenade. This is a divorce filing, I said. My attorney has it. You will be served tomorrow at Sterling Holdings. Don't make a scene. Take the divorce quietly, or I will ensure the city knows exactly who you are. His hands shook as he took the papers. As for what we want, Julian added, we want you gone. The condo is in my trust. You leave tonight. Your things go to storage. Julian stepped closer. You will sign these, granting full dissolution and a restraining order. No contesting, no contact. You resign from Sterling by Friday? Resign? Ethan squeaked. But my career? I have nothing without it. You should have thought of that before you tried to sell my family secrets and spent years tearing my sister apart, Julian said in a lethal whisper. Resign quietly, and we won't pursue you for corporate espionage. We won't leak these recordings. You will be a nobody who faded away. That is our mercy. Quit and be broke, or fight and have your name destroyed forever. Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. Coraline, please, I am sorry. I was an idiot. Let us try counselling. I loved you once, Ethan, I said. You used that love as a weapon. There is no saving this marriage. I left. Julian steered me out, and the manager gave a respectful nod. Ethan begged behind us, a hollow sound. We ignored it, pushing through into the crisp Chicago night. A town car waited. Once inside, the leather felt cold. Julian shut the door, and we sat in silence as I put my old life in the rearview mirror. The adrenaline crashed, leaving me exhausted. You were magnificent, Julian whispered. A single hot tear tracked down my cheek. Then another. It was just the release of 3 years of lies. He never loved me, I whispered. Not really. Julian was quiet. He loved owning a trophy wife. When you turned out to be brilliant, it broke his fragile ego. He couldn't own you, so he tried to break you. A small man's only move. I leaned my head against the cold glass. I feel empty. Good, Julian said. That gives you room to fill up with the right things. Where to? The penthouse, he said. It is yours. They will be there next week. For now it is just us. I have a vintage wine and ice cream waiting. The comfort broke my tension. You planned all of this? He shrugged. I just built the stage. You performed the masterpiece. Philippe was thrilled to see you. I replayed Philippe's icy politeness. The wine was the perfect sting, a reminder of what Ethan had tossed away. Julian looked grim. My attorney is coming at 10. He gets served at noon. His things will be gone by morning. I called Martin Sterling during dinner, an old friend. He was appalled by his employee's conduct. Ethan's resignation will be processed before he even tries to quit. Access already cut. We pulled up to the tower. As we walked through the lobby, I felt the staff watching. They saw a Dubois and his sister. Untouchable, I kept my head high. The country girl was dead. Coraline Dubois was finally home. The elevator rose, and for the first time, I tasted real freedom. I slept for 10 hours in luxury. Sunlight hit the floor when I woke. Then it hit the restaurant, the recording, the divorce. A wave of relief washed over me. The world would know by today. My main phone was a dead brick. My encrypted device had pings. Coffee in the kitchen. Samantha arrives at 10. Be kind to yourself. And one from my old home line. Ethan had called 12 times. I deleted them all. The kitchen was perfect. I poured coffee and looked out at Lake Michigan. I answered. How are you? Like I was hit by a truck, but I'm standing. Good. The footage from last night is out. I tensed. What footage? The audio. Him calling you a monkey at a typewriter. It is viral. Chicago finance blogs are everywhere. The hashtag typewritergate is trending. My stomach turned. This wasn't what I wanted. I know, Julian said. A junior editor caught it. His name and the Dubois connection. It is a feast for the gossips. Is it bad? For him? It is catastrophic? People call it a lesson in class. For you, the tone is different. Coraline Dubois is a silent queen. Revenge is living well. There is already a fan account with 10,000 followers. I buried my face in my hands. A fan account? My misery was public entertainment. Samantha will handle the PR, but stay silent. Let the story burn. I opened the laptop. The article was savage. Comments were a torrent of mockery. They photoshopped his face onto a wine bottle. A shameful part of me loved it. I shut the laptop. At 10, the intercom buzzed. Samantha Reed appeared, eyes like winter and a grip of steel. She carried a leather portfolio. Coraline, she said, brisk but kind. I have seen the news. Let's talk damage. She laid out files. Sterling will escort him out immediately. The judge will grant a restraining order instantly, given the Dubois name and the evidence. He cannot come within 500 feet of you. No contact. She slid over the settlement. It is simple. You keep everything you brought in. He gets his personal stuff and the $4 in his bank account. He assumes all marital debt. And the non-disclosure agreement? I asked. She tapped a file. We aren't pursuing criminal charges for his attempted leaks. He signs this and never speaks of you again. Any breach means immediate lawsuits and the release of all recordings. It is airtight. Will he sign? Samantha smiled coldly. He has no choice. The intercom buzzed. It is Ethan. Should I call security? Samantha and I locked eyes. She spoke into the intercom. This is her attorney. You will not let him up. Call the police if he stays. I sat with my cold coffee. He was here. He will try to contact you, Samantha warned. Burner phones, emails, be a black hole. Let his words vanish. Don't respond. Minutes later, my old phone lit up. Texts. Sarah, please. Miller fired me. Everyone saw it. My phone is blowing up. Where are you? The keys do not work. Your brother is packing my bags. I am sorry. I really am. You win. Fine. Just tell me what to do. Stop ignoring me. This is your fault. Your stuck-up family set me up. The messages kept pouring in, spiraling from begging to rage. I watched the screen, a real-time autopsy of a man losing his mind. I screenshotted the final threat and sent it to Sarah. Then I blocked him. Good, she said, checking her phone. The first violation. That helps our restraining order. She looked at me, assessing. This is the hard part, sitting in the wreckage without cleaning it up. He will get worse before he vanishes. And he did. That night, as I sat alone, the intercom buzzed. It was building security. Miss Vane, sorry to bother you. Mr. Hayes is in the alley. He snuck past the loading dock. He is demanding to see you. He says he will not leave. We have him contained. Police are on the way. Cold fear hit me, then hot anger. He was invading my new fragile peace. Sarah S. voice echoed, Be a black hole! I am not coming down. Call the police, Dave. Get him out. He is resisting, so press charges. I checked the service gate feed on my tablet. There he was, Julian, tie crooked, hair a total wreck. He was squaring off with 2 guards, screaming. He looked small, diminished, like a faded photo. The high-flying hedge fund manager was gone, just a guy realizing his status had vanished. I watched chest tight as police arrived. 2 officers approached. Julian was frantic, pointing toward my balcony. The cops shook their heads. One grabbed his arm and Julian fought it. Pathetic. They marched him to the cruiser. Not in cuffs, but clearly not free. Next morning, my lawyer, Elena, called. He signed the settlement. He had a public defender at the station who saw our mountain of evidence and told him to sign everything to save his career. It is finally over. The silence after the storm was heavy. Restraining order granted. Divorce is final in 2 months, but we are separated now. He is gone. Elena, I should have felt pure relief, but I felt empty. The war was over, and I was standing in the ruins. There is one more thing, Elena said, voice cautious. He is requesting a final meeting through his lawyer. He says he needs closure. I advise against it. There is nothing to gain. I knew she was right. But a ghost of my past whispered a dangerous idea. Maybe I need closure too, to say what I kept inside at that dinner, to see him not as a monster but as a broken man and say goodbye. Make it happen, I told her, but keep it public with security close. Coraline, please. Elena, I need this. We met in a quiet conference room at her office 2 days later. Julian was there with an exhausted public defender. He looked ruined. Aged 5 years in 3 days, suit rumpled, eyes bloodshot. When I walked in, he flinched. The lawyers set the rules. This was a discussion only. No deals would change, any harassment, and it is over. We sat there staring at each other across the mahogany table. You look well, he said, voice raspy. Thank you. A long silence followed. He toyed with a paperclip. I am at a cheap motel near the airport. My stuff is in storage locker 417. The code is my mom's birthday. You remembered? I did. Why? He asked, suddenly desperate. Why the charity after everything? Because being cruel is not who I am, I said. Even to you. He nodded, swallowing hard. The video is everywhere. I cannot find work. Not in finance. My friends have ghosted me. My mother says I shamed the family. He gave a broken laugh, as if we had any reputation left to save. I said nothing. No absolution. I loved you, you know, he said, eyes shining. In my own way. I was just so angry all the time. At the partners, at the guys who had it easier. I took it out on you. It was not fair. No, I agreed. It was not. I am sorry. The words were raw. They sounded almost real. For all of it. For the insults. For not really seeing you. For being a coward. I believed he was sorry. Sorry he got caught. Sorry he lost his lifestyle. Sorry his world collapsed. But was he sorry for the cruelty? I doubted it. I have something for you, I said. I slid a manila folder across the table. He opened it carefully. Not a legal document, just a list. 24 lines with dates and direct quotes. June 14th, 2024. Don't try to understand the market report. It is not like balancing a checkbook. August 3rd, 2024. That dress makes you look like you are heading to a church picnic. Do you own anything not in gingham? October 22nd, 2024. Just be quiet and look pretty. It is what you are good at. January 15th, 2025. My boss wife has real opinions. You just have moods, on and on. 24 instances of contempt over the last 14 months. I pulled them from the recordings, a ledger of our marriage as failure. His face went white, his hands shook. What is this? That is the why, Julian. My voice stayed steady. That is what you did. That is who you became. I did not leave because you failed. I left because you were cruel. I stayed because I loved you. You exploited that because you were weak. Love should never feel like a prison. He stared at the list, jaw slack. Hearing whispers in a cafe was one thing. Seeing his cruelty in cold, chronological order was another. I did not realize, he stammered. You did not want to, I corrected. You needed me small so you could feel tall. A real partner lifts you up. They do not stand on you. He had no answer. His lawyer would not look at us. I loved the man you were, I said, rising. My goodbye. I pity the man you are now. I hope you change, but it is not my problem. We are done. I wish you no harm, but I wish you nothing. I turned to the door. Sarah followed. Coraline, he called out. His voice was raw. I kept walking. Who are you? He asked, echoing the cafe. But the rage was gone, just hollow space left. I glanced back at the wreck in his cheap suit and gave him a sad, small smile. I am the woman you married, Ethan. You just never bothered to look. I walked out, leaving him with his wreckage and the truth of why it all collapsed. The void inside me was not so empty anymore. It was filling up with a quiet, steady light. My lesson was finished. My real life was finally starting. 3 months later, the air in Napa Valley held a new kind of warmth. Not that heavy Chicago humidity, but a crisp, golden glow that smelled of sun-baked earth, vines, and wild rosemary. It felt like coming home. I stood on a stone terrace, overlooking the sloping vineyards of my new life. A tiny microphone was tucked into my hair. Below, 100 industry titans, mingled critics, buyers, press all hooked on my comeback. Our brand Valor was finally live. I wore simple linen dress, skin sun-kissed, hair loose. I felt like me. Not a wife, not a victim, a vintner. A reporter leaned in. Thorn, the Valor label is a bold change for a house known for classic reds. What inspired it? I smiled. It is about feminine strength. Complexity mistaken for fragility. The lioness is the hunter and the heart of the pride. This wine, I gestured to the glass, is a blend. Grenache for fire, Syrah for spice, anchored by our oldest Pinot Noir. Power with grace. She pressed about the comeback narrative. I kept my gaze steady. The wine speaks for itself. My private life is private. I am here for the future, not the past. She nodded, scribbling notes. I had mastered the art of facing the scandal without letting it crush me. The rumours had faded, replaced by intrigue over the heiress reclaiming her throne. I used that buzz to drive interest, then shifted to the product. My PR coach had been brutal. Across the terrace, I saw Marcus chatting with a Tokyo buyer. He gave me a thumbs up, my rock. A new intern, Chloe, passed by with trays. She was shy, but she could identify rare grapes just by touch. She had been terrified an hour ago, but I taught her to let the craft speak. She was thriving now. My phone buzzed. I stepped away toward the vines. A text from an unknown Chicago number. Coraline, I am using a friend's phone. I saw the news. You look happy, like you belong. I am in Phoenix now, selling industrial cooling units. It is a job. The divorce is final. I will not bother you again. I am sorry for everything, not because I lost, but because you deserved better. Be happy, E. I stared at the screen. No demands, no pity, just accountability. It was the first honest thing he had ever said. I blocked the number. Closure is not a conversation. It is a quiet click in your own heart. Alex appeared beside me with water. Thinking? I pocketed the phone. It is a brilliant day. Pre-orders are at 200% of our goal. They buy the story, but the wine brings them back. That was the plan. Transcend the noise. It is time, Alex said, eyes bright. You ready? I took a deep breath, the scent of the vineyard filling my lungs. Ready. We walked to the podium. Alex tapped the mic, and the crowd went silent. Cameras flashed. Friends, thank you for celebrating this new chapter for Thorne Estates. Alex spoke with authority. For generations, our family has known that great wine is more than a drink. It is a story of a place and the people behind it. Today we add a new voice. He turned to me, pride in his eyes. Many of you followed my sister's recent journey. You saw her resilience. What you may not know is that Coraline has been our secret weapon for years. Her palate is elite. Her vision sparked the new Valor label. She is not just returning home. She is claiming her birthright. He paused. Effective now, I am thrilled to name Sienna Vance our new co-chief executive, leading brand strategy and hospitality. Applause broke out. This wasn't a pity move. They knew the business. They saw the plan. Alex handed me the mic. I scanned the crowd, spotting partners for the future I was building. Thank you, Alex. And thank you all. I started, voice steady. Vance Estates has always been about roots and wings, blending the land's history with creative heights. My vision links fine wine to the art world, telling stories as deep on canvas as they are in the glass. I unveiled our first move, a limited bottle series with a local sculptor, a ballet-themed tasting, and an artist residency right here. It felt bold. I caught a spark in the critics' eyes. As I finished, I noticed Maya in the back, holding an empty tray with genuine wonder. I saw my younger self in her capable but doubting her place. Grant S.'s voice echoed in my head. Just a small-town girl. I looked at Maya and saw potential, not limits. Her grind was her power. The party swirled around us. I was in my element, talking vintages and body. As the sun hit the horizon, turning the sky violet, I found a quiet spot near the old oak. My phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa Hart, the wife of Grant's former boss, the woman he used to call the perfect socialite. Sienna, hope this message is okay. Congrats on today. I have followed the news. What you are building is incredible. I also need to apologize. A year ago, Grant was at lunch and made cruel remarks about you. Your clothes, your style. I laughed along. I thought it was just petty gossip. I did not know. I am so sorry I stayed silent. What you did, walking away, it is inspiring. Best wishes, Vanessa. I read it twice. The apology mattered. It owned the silent complicity that let Grant's cruelty fester. I typed back. Vanessa, thank you. No apology needed. We all survive these things as best we can. I am happy to be on the other side. Let us have coffee when you are in the valley. I would love to hear about your charity work. Best, Sienna. It was a bridge. People talk. Kindness is a currency that never loses value. As twilight hit, guests left. I kicked off my heels and walked barefoot onto the cool, damp earth of my vineyard. Soil between my toes. This was my real office now. My phone buzzed. A text from Julian, an accountant whose grammar I once fixed at a party years ago. Clara saw the news. You are a legend. I know this is random, but after you left, I got a $15,000 check. My mother's surgery. I know it was you. The facility said it came from the Vance Trust. I was too proud to ask then, and everything fell apart with my husband. Thank you. You saved her life. I owe you everything. I smiled to myself. I had almost forgotten. It was 2 years ago. Julian had mentioned his mom needed a procedure that insurance would not cover. I caught the fear in his voice and called my trust manager the next morning. It was pocket change for the fund, but it was everything to him. I made them keep it quiet. It was about helping someone in pain. I typed back, Julian, so glad she is okay. You owe me nothing. Just buy a bottle of my reserve when it launches. Take care. His reply hit instantly. A whole case. And Clara, kindness suits you better than any of us. I tucked the phone away and watched the stars appear in the violet sky. My past felt like a distant place I rarely visit. My life was here now, in these vines. A soft voice interrupted. Miss Vance! I turned. It was Chloe holding my shoes. You left these. Thanks, Chloe. And please, just call me Clara. I took them. You did a great job today. Really? She blushed, staring at the dirt. Thanks. It was wild. So many high-profile guests. They are just people, I said gently. Most are just better at hiding their nerves. Your notes on the soil in Sector 7 impressed the foreman. He said that matters more than impressing a food critic. She looked up, eyes bright. Really? Truly? This is your world too, Chloe. Never let anyone make you feel like an outsider where you belong. The advice felt like a vow to her and my younger self. She stood taller. I won't. Thanks, Clara. As she walked toward the winery, her phone rang. She answered, her voice shy but steady. Yes, Mom, it was beautiful. Her French was a bit shaky, but it was brave. It was her claiming her own space. I stood in the dark vineyard, the owner of a legacy I finally accepted, listening to another woman find her strength. The lioness was home, and her power was not a roar of anger, but the steady growth of vines under a vast sky. The future finally tasted sweet.